And hello YouTube. So this is Thomas Judge, back once again with another instalment of my Ultimate New 52 reading guide. To give a bit of background, I have over the last few years read the entire DC New 52, that's 3,646 issues, and I've used that read through to create the internet's most comprehensive reading map for the New 52, bar none. Today's video is video 7.1, which is going to cover Earth 2, Future's End and Convergence. Now before we go any further, I would stress that even if you think you know what the New 52 is, or even if you only want to read one specific part of it, then you really need to still go back and watch the introductory video to this series, which is video 0.0. That covers a lot of the broad concepts and principles that underlie this guide, and terms like type J readers or volumes with a big V and so on. It also gives you an idea of what I'm trying to achieve with this guide, but isn't an exhaustive step-by-step, page-by-page linear continuity, the way a lot of people that go on websites like Reddit might prefer. This is just much more of a guide to how you might collect or read them in trade collections, but the details are in the introduction video and the link is in the description below. So with no further ado, here is my Ultimate New 52 reading guide. And today's episode is episode 7.1, Earth 2, Future's End and Convergence. And with that, today we're actually going to do something a little bit different. So what you're looking at now is the New 52 map that I've created and have been using for this video series so far. I've done over a dozen videos, each of which has dived into this map in a lot of detail. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have already noticed and have already tweeted me that this map doesn't actually contain some large and very prominent New 52 titles, such as Earth 2, Future's End or Convergence. Now, I obviously haven't forgotten about those, but before I show you where they fit in on the map and walk you through the best reading order for them, we need to discuss something else. We need to talk about Elseworlds. Now I'm going to explain what Elseworlds is. Before the New 52, DC published what it referred to as Elseworlds stories. These were kind of like grandiose what-if stories. Some of them became very famous, like Mark Millar's Superman Red Sun, which asked the question, what if Superman's rocket ship had deposited the infant Kal-El in Soviet Russia instead of in Kansas? Another famous one is Gotham by Gaslight, which is a Victorian era Batman story. In other words, what if Batman had existed in the 19th century and had Jack the Ripper as an arch nemesis? Probably the most famous current Elseworlds story you might know is actually the 2018 3-series crossover event from the CW Arrowverse, which took familiar characters and put them in all new situations. So, the Elseworld imprint, which has the logo that I've been showing you on screen there, formerly existed from 1989 all the way up to 2011, all the way up to, you guessed it, the New 52. Now, linked to the Elseworlds idea was a variety of other Earths and parallel universes. There was Earth 0, Earth 1, Earth A, Earth B, Earth C+, Earth 2, Earth 2A, Earth 3, Earth Prime, Earth 25G, Earth 124.1 and 124.2. Anyway, the list goes on. Seriously, you should read the Wikipedia article called List of DC Multiverse Worlds. It's mind-boggling. Now, all these alternate worlds came from DC's repeated, clumsy and ineffectual attempts to clean up DC continuity. I won't go into it here, as it's incredibly complex and impenetrable, but I will say that there are some great YouTube videos on other channels trying to explain it. What this means for us, though, is that the New 52 represented a new slate. All these other universes were wiped out. We just had the one universe to think about. Or so we thought. Now, over time, DC belatedly brought the various other multiverse Earths back, and that's where this video comes in. The Earth 2 series started in 2011 and was considered a one-off, unique, out-of-continuity story that had nothing to do with the New 52. That made it unique and odd, but that in itself was fine. Before I go on, I just want to stress this. The series Earth 2 is nothing to do with the imprint called Earth 1, which is a series of original graphic novels or OGNs. They look like this, and here are two of the Superman ones in that line, and they've been released since 2010 right up until very recently. The Earth 1 series of OGN, so the things you're looking at now, they're considered to be new jumping on points for new readers, retelling the stories of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, and even Green Lantern. Despite the name, this is nothing to do with Earth 2 and nothing to do with the New 52 reading order. The Earth 1 original graphic novels is completely separate, and I'm not going to be covering it in these videos because it's nothing to do with New 52. Anyway, DC then started the Future's End event in May 2014, which was a weekly series of comics that ended with its 48th issue in April 2015. I will be covering that in a little while. However, by the conclusion of Future's End, it became clear that it was both tied into the Convergence event and also represented a separate reality, not the 5 years in the future reality it had been billed as originally. There's a lot to think about here and a lot to put together, a lot to try to slot together in my own head. But in the end, I realised that this was all just one big Elseworlds story that was part of the New 52. And as a result of that, I then made this. This is the second part of my New 52 map. It's like an extra part or an add-on. It covers every single story that links into the Elseworlds thread of the New 52 stories, including several that people didn't realise were in this strange alternate universe until they'd actually finished publishing them all together. I just want to say this was never intended as a bait and switch. I wasn't tricking anyone or lying to anyone. I just didn't reveal the fact that I had this second map as well, because I know that the first map is such a big, such a comprehensive and such an intimidating thing. I didn't want people to think that there was even more to worry about. At this stage though, if you've been following the videos through, you're probably ready and probably quite relaxed to see this map, which as you can see is much, much simpler and just comprises the Elseworlds parts of New 52. This is also available on the website, which I will discuss at the end of the video as well. As always, I'm going to try to do absolutely no spoilers here, and as always, I'm not saying this is the perfect way or the only way to read this part of the New 52. I am a Type J reader myself and not a Type P reader. If you go into Reddit or things like that, you will find much more exhaustive and much more confusing reading orders. However, this is just how I think makes the most satisfying sense. I didn't read it in this way, and I kind of wish that I had. So today we're going to zoom into this map, and unlike my main map, which is a circular radial map where you start in the middle and then it sort of expands outwards, this is much more straightforward. It starts at the top and goes down. So with all that said, the whole thing starts here, right at the top, with the very first bubble we're looking at today. This is Mr. Terrific. This single volume collects issues 1 to 8 and ties into what comes next. Just trust me on that. Let's scroll down. So, we then have Earth 2. So this is volume 1 of Earth 2. This is called The Gathering, and it collects issues 1 to 6. Continuing to scroll down, we have the second volume, which is called The Tower of Fate. That collects issues 7 to 12 and issue 0. Continuing to scroll down, we have volume 3, which is called Battle Cry, which collects issues 13 to 16, annual 1, and issue 15.1. Now, this series started off quite weakly as far as I'm concerned. It's a bit of a modern retelling of the Justice Society of America, who are the precursors to the much better known Justice League. It's okay, but it's actually a bit dull at the end of the day. The premise is that this is a world where the Trinity, which is Batman, Superman and Wonder Woman, died repelling Darkseid's invasion 5 years earlier. Hence we get the Elseworlds what-if feel to it. Is when we get here, down to volume 4, which is called The Dark Age and beyond, that the series picks up. This, not coincidentally, marks a serious shift in tone with the arrival of the amazing Tom Taylor to write it. I'll put it this way, if you enjoy the Injustice comics, you owe it to yourself to pick these up. So volume 4, The Dark Age, collects issues 17 to 20 and annual 2. Continuing on, volume 5, The Kryptonian, which you can see here, contains issues 21 to 26 and the Earth 2 Future's End one-shot. That's also a really excellent volume. Unfortunately, we then get to the end of the series, which is volume 6. This marks Tom Taylor's departure from writing duties and as a result this volume is a bit of a mixed bag. Volume 6 is called Collision and collects issues 27 to 32. It doesn't flow very well in terms of the narrative and is all just setting up the next series, which actually felt a bit like an arbitrary apocalyptic tone. So, just to zoom out and give us a bit of a look there, we started off with Mr. Terrific, and then we've got Earth 2, Volume 1, 2, 3. I personally bought Volumes 4 and 5 because I thought they were great, and then it's got Volume 6, which is a bit of a mess. So with that out of the way, I'd recommend that we pull back a little bit and we turn our attention to this little diversion that I have here. This is 2011's Huntress series, which many people had no idea was set in this Elseworlds universe. This 6-issue miniseries is written by Paul Levitz, and despite some great art, it's pretty underwhelming. However, whilst the story itself seems to be initially set in the standard New 52 universe, the last few pages of the last issue suddenly reveal that it's set in this alternative universe all along, and actually leads us smoothly into this, Huntress and Power Girl, World's Finest. Now, World's Finest is a name with a fine pedigree. It's historically been used to refer to a line of classic DC comics that feature Batman and Superman teaming up to be best pals and engaging in superheroics to save the world. These are currently being released in Silver Age omnibus formats. I don't believe there are any Golden Age stories under this name. However, ever since Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns shifted the dynamic of their relationship into a much more tense and grounded one, comics featuring the duo are generally just called by their combined names instead of being called World's Finest. That's led to titles like this one from before the New 52, and then this one from the New 52 itself, which we covered in video 3.3 as part of the Superman universe. Or even most recently, there's now this title featuring both of the main characters from the DC Rebirth era. That kind of leads to the words World Finest being up for grabs as a title, and so it was used here to title a series starring Power Girl and Huntress, and it was also written by Paul Levitz. I'm not going to give spoilers here, but it makes sense when you find out who they are under the costumes. So with that out of the way, let's look at this World's Finest part of the map. We have Volume 1, which is called The Lost Daughters of Earth 2. That collects issues 1 to 5 and issue 0. Scrolling down, we then have Volume 2, which is called Hunt and Be Hunted, which collects issues 6 to 12. Scrolling down again, we have Volume 3, which is called Control Issues. That collects issues 13 to 18. And then further down we have Volume 4, which is called First Contact. Now this does contain some issues from the mainstream New 52 series, Batman Superman. As I said, we mentioned those in video 3.3 on the normal New 52 map. And it shows a crossing of universes and collects, in this volume, World's Finest 18 to 21 and Annual 1, and then Batman Superman issues 8 and issues 9. It's a tie-in, so not a crossover, just a tie-in. It's totally readable in this particular book without need to hunt down anything else. Even if you haven't read Batman Superman in the New 52 yet, you can read this, it's fine. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that issue 18 is collected both here, in Volume 4, and here, in Volume 3. And you might be wondering if I've made a mistake. I haven't. Unfortunately, it's connected in both of them. Let's continue on to the end of the series, and this is called, this isn't quite the end yet, this is Volume 5, this is called Homeward Bound. It does, confusingly enough, contain a Future's End one-shot, as well as issues 22 to 26, but basically don't worry about that. If you're a Type P reader, you will never find a perfect reading order here that anyone will ever agree with you on, and if you're a Type J reader like I am, you'll just roll with that. And finally, getting to the end of this line, we have Volume 6, which is called The Secret History of Superman and Batman. That contains issues 27 to 32. So let's pan back a bit. You'll see that the World's Finest stuff is there on the right hand side. There's a little series of it. It was pretty good. The artwork was okay, but ultimately it's pretty forgettable. What I would say, before you read it, I would recommend reading it after Earth 2, and Huntress is the bridge to get over to that. Okay, let's get back onto that main thread. So If we go back to where we were, which is we just read Earth 2 Volume 6 Collision, and then we went off and diverged with Huntress and World's Finest. And if you jump back into Earth 2, directly after Earth 2 comes this series. This is called Earth 2 World's End. This is a 26-week series with an issue dropping every single week. The individual volumes are untitled, so this is just called Earth 2 World's End Volume 1 and collects issues 1 to 11. This is only available in paperback, I'm afraid. And then separately, you've got Volume 2, which is also untitled, so Earth 2 World's End Volume 2, and that collects issues 12 to 26. I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end, but that's kind of the end of Earth 2 for a little while. And both of those are only collected as paperbacks. Huntress and World Finest is also only collected as paperbacks. And Earth 2 as a whole is collected as hardcovers, if you're interested in getting those. And then obviously Mr. Terrific at the top is only a paperback. So we've done this much of the map then, guys. Obviously still quite a lot to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end that today. I'm going to pan out a little bit so you can see where we are. I'm going to end that today, and in the next video we're going to dive into that in a lot more detail. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, please like, comment, subscribe and share more widely. I'm really interested to hear your take on this. I know it's a bit of a change and a bit of a bait and switch in terms of my video series. What do you think of the new map? Does it make sense? Is it helpful? Hit me up in the comments below to let me know, or tweet me at @IamThomasJudge. As always, these videos are only possible thanks to supporting this channel by heading over to Amazon.com and picking up the first episode of my prose novel, No Gods or Kings. It's over 200 pages long and available for less than $1. And if you've got Kindle Unlimited, it's already completely free. It's a series of interviews from a future where superpowers are real, and the entire world has changed dramatically as a result. If you're not sure if you want to pick it up and you just want to read a free excerpt, check out the website, which is www.nogodsorkings.com. And whilst you're there, you can also download the original New 52 infographic I was showing you in the previous videos. And as of today, this particular map and infographic is also going to be available. So whilst you're there, why not pick up the first book and support the channel? Until next time, stay classy.